Okay, so here we are going to just work through how we can create our mock-ups. So as I mentioned, some of you guys might have your own variations. I try to kind of find the quickest and simplest and easiest way to do this. So take a look and see what you think here. So to start off, I have my napkin file open. I always do like to duplicate it just because I like to kind of have my original, and then I also still like to keep my files really organized. So we'll call that original, and then we're going to call this mockup. So just to save time, I did already create my paths around this, so it's up to you guys to do that. That's a good start point. Making sure you save them. This isn't one full thing. Always keeping in mind when we're doing our mock-ups of all the different elements versus one big flat item. So this part of our napkin is obviously going to be folded in a different direction, and it's going to have perhaps maybe it's its own pattern. I don't know, if depending on how your fabric gets folded. But in this instance, this would technically be upside down. So anyways, it's always just good to separate those elements out. So I have those, I've saved them both in my paths, and then I've also opened up my mocked up patterns. So I'm just going to, because it's the napkin, I think this might be a bit small, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm just going to grab that my pattern on the 36 by 36. I'm going to use a small version. I'm just going to Command C to copy, and I'm just going to go Command V to paste, and always paste as a smart object so you can revert back. So this is where you guys get to have your fun now. So this is where we get to see how we want this size. Do we want it to be quite big? Maybe you like it really small. It's all personal preference. I just wanted to see how you guys could translate your pattern. So I'm just gonna leave it at that, which might be a little bit busy, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm just gonna call this top napkin. So always a key thing, I'm sure you guys have learned, labeling your layers is always valuable. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to press Command, and I'm going to click on the top napkin path. Then I'm going to use my selection tool, and I'm going to right click, and I'm just going to give this a 1 pixel feather. Up to you guys to decide how much you want that to be feathered. Obviously we're trying to achieve it looking as realistic as possible. So that might take, some reverting back and forth. So my pattern selected, I have a feather on here on that path, and I'm just going to mask it out. And there's our pattern. So now our pattern just kind of looks like it's kind of just floating on there. Because my background, I've chose to have my background white, a super simple way of doing this is adjusting to multiply. Because we have a white napkin and a white background on the pattern, this works out really easy. You guys might find when you do create your patterns, this fine line is appearing. I think that's just the translation from Illustrator to Photoshop, so you don't have to worry about that. But that may be where you also want to go into your pattern real close in Illustrator and just double checking that fine line isn't there as well. So anyways, working on that. So I think the multiply works quite well. In our other samples, I'll show you some other variations on that. And that's just where you can kind of go and just double check your path, just making sure, you've got everything covered here. Your feather's not too heavy or too light, etc. So the reason why we multiply, it really gives it a nice realistic look. It picks up the grains in the fabric, and it also picks up the shadows, which is key. But again, it mostly works because we have a white napkin, and I have a white napkin on our background, which doesn't always work out. So now I'm going to do this side. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to duplicate that pattern. I'm just going to delete that. Just going to bring that back to normal. So, so this is where I know that when it's on this back side, it's rotated. So I'm just going to go ahead and rotate that pattern. And then again, I'm going to just Command click on that bottom napkin path, use my selection tool, right click feather. I'm going to again keep that to 1 pixel so it's all about the same. Press OK, and then mask it out. So now from here we can go and just going to zoom in so you guys can see that. So we're on our normal, and you can see immediately when we hit the multiply, it right away picks up those shadows, which really gives it that nice realistic look. And like I said, we'll go over that again of how we can find or adjust it in a different way after. So there's our napkin. You're welcome to go and put more details in there if you want to add more shadows. If you want to, you know, perhaps you want to adjust the angle on the fabric. They call it on the bias. So if that fabric was cut on the bias, make sure you unlink from your mask. And I'm going to just select my pattern layer, Command T to adjust. And then maybe I want it over and off on the angle. But again, if you do so here, you just want to make sure that you're doing it elsewhere. So keeping an eye on that rotation, how much we rotated. I'm just kind of eyeballing here. But again, when we're creating these mock-ups, what we want to achieve is the most realistic look and feel.